Hey everyone, and welcome to the Buyers Agents podcast. Today on the podcast, we're joined by Tim Allen from IPS Buyers Agents. We're really excited to do this one because Tim brings a unique perspective to the property game. He's not only a professional buyer's agent, but he's also been a qualified mortgage broker for more than 13 years. At IPS, Tim and his team work diligently and exclusively for property buyers across southeast Queensland, including areas like Moreton Bay, Toowoomba, Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast and Brisbane. And they help people cut through the stress of buying property to uncover off-market opportunities, secure the right property for the buyer, and get them the right price. If it's first homes or smart investments, Tim is the guy to talk to. And in this episode, we're going to dive into the market and what people are getting wrong when it comes to using a buyer's agent and going out and buying property. Particularly from a finance experience and from the background of having a knowledge of exactly how to buy property at the right price with the right financial backing. Let's get into the pod. Tim Allen, welcome to the podcast.
Hi guys, how are you? Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Listen, the first thing I'm going to say is I love the socks.
Oh, thank you.
I can see Bandit on those.
Yes.
I'm a huge Bluey fan myself.
I've got a 6-year-old and a 20-month-old, and they absolutely love
Bluey.
And I don't mind it myself, to be quite honest. It's not a bad show to watch.
I have a 5-year-old, and though he is a bit more into Hot Wheels at the moment than Bluey, we went through a stage where he was in love with Bluey, and we love it too. So.
And Blue's from Brisbane.
Yes.
Bluey is from Brisbane.
Definitely is from Brisbane.
What an export we have in Brisbane.
Yeah.
From the arts.
Yeah.
We do.
You know, like from people that have built great brands to people that are achieving great things, both in business and everything else, but particularly around the arts. You know, we have some great bands. We have some great people. It's
the place to be at the moment, really. Everyone sort of looks at Melbourne and says it's the art, and it's like, well, actually, no. There's so much coming out of us. It's not funny.
There is, and I think even out towards some of the areas that you're working with, what was it, the Bee Gees up at Scarborough? They came from Scarborough region.
Yep.
We got Shepherd down here, down in central Brisbane.
Powderfinger came from.
Powderfinger.
Vulture Street, they named a record after the street that they recorded it on. They recorded Vulture Street record was recorded on Vulture there. Street.
Wow.
That's why they call it Vulture Street.
Yeah, amazing.
Not to mention, it's just beautiful. Yeah. Like sometimes I wake up on a Saturday and it's like a sunny day and I walk the dogs and I'm looking over Brisbane City and I'm like, holy, like the jacaranda trees are in bloom right now in Norman Park. So the entire suburb is just purple with these flowers. And it's just a stunning looking out over the river to the city.
I had to run into the city to do something this morning, and then on my way out here to see you guys for this podcast, I drove through Ascot and all the Poincianas and that beautiful orangey red with the little tinge of yellow going through. I'm like, oh, this is, you know, what a place to be.
What a place to be.
We were actually driving through the exact same place this morning, and he was noticing the trees, the jacarandas, the Poincianas. Look, I mean, the whole region is idyllic.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's what you're going to, hopefully, and I'm sure it will provide quite a insightful viewpoint on the region itself. Because, you know, last week on the pod, we were joined by Belinda Walters. She was talking about Ascot in particularly and that inner city region. And I guess this week we're growing out your experience and your knowledge of area, and it's more of a southeast Queensland.
Yeah, I love the entire pocket. So there's blue chip suburbs, and then even within the suburbs, there's blue chip streets. There's those couple of really nice streets that everybody wants to be on. So instead of having that sort of one shoe fits all, or tailoring my service to just that one, you know, sort of aspect of people, I want, in a sense, 5% that want to work with me, that see me as their trusted professional and their trusted advisor, and I want to then be able to find there an absolute cracking deal, whether it be on the Sunshine Coast, out in Toowoomba, down on the Gold Coast, in Brisbane, Ipswich, Moreton Bay, you know, Redlands or Logan, wherever that may be.
And so does IPS focus on a predominantly owner-occupier or investor, or is it a mixture of both?
So technically IPS stands for Investment Property Strategies, but I predominantly deal a lot more with owner-occs. and that sort of thing. I do have a few investors and stuff like that I'm dealing with, and I've got one client that I've been able to help him, and we've bought 3 properties in the last 12 months. And he's made some serious equity on the back of those 3 purchases, which is absolutely amazing that I've been able to prove myself to him and really cement that relationship. And he's got some seriously good capital appreciation out of those 3 properties.
And what are we seeing in Southeast Queensland? Is it buyers like that that are purchasing more, or is it people coming from interstate and just attracted to the region? Is it transitioning between, say, a centralised city region like Brisbane and up to the Sunshine Coast or Gold Coast? What are you generally seeing with buyers?
Mixture of everything. So I've got a couple of buyers that I've worked with and working with currently that are interstate investors. I've got a couple of local investors that I'm working with, and then a lot of people. So lovely first home buyer couple. They're actually living down in Ascot in a unit at the moment. And for his further study, he's been moved up to Sunshine Coast because he's got to go regional with what he's studying and everything like that. And they wanted to buy their first home. And they were looking up on the sunny coast. They got pre-approved with their mortgage broker, and the broker said, go get a buyer's agent. They reached out to myself, and I'll get you guys to have a little guess, and then I'll tell you what we actually paid for it. But we got a 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom, 1 car garage townhouse in a block of 17. It's a 5-minute walk to the Maroochy River, 7-minute walk to the beach, 10 minutes to the Maroochydore Surf Club. It's on the same block as where they've got the Cotton Tree Sunday markets. There's 118,000 in the sinking fund, so there's nothing to stress too much if there's required repairs and stuff like that. What would you pay for that?
How old is it?
It was built, would have been built probably mid-90s, so about 95.
Okay, so Cotton Tree is this area at the moment which we experience a lot of rejuvenation and a lot of growth as well. And I think Joe Adset's built is he building a big?
There was I think it was them around the corner, and they were selling for about $4 million an apartment.
Okay. I'd be probably around the 2. Listen, I'm not super familiar with the market. I'd be
about $1 million is probably where you should be, right?
Yeah, right.
We got it for $895.
There you go. Incredible.
So we're unconditional. We're not settled yet, but we're unconditional.
Incredible. So you're out there getting the buyer brief, finding exactly what they need. They've come from Ascot, where it's what's the median unit price in Ascot? It's got to be
renting. They're renting.
They're renting. No, but that's what the lifestyle choice that they've got.
Yeah. You can get garbage in there for about 1.2, but if you want something nice, about 1.6, 1.8.
Yeah, so that's the same sort of lifestyle. He's now, he's got a much better lifestyle that he's moved into. He's now probably paying less in mortgage. We'll talk about your background as a mortgage broker, but less as a mortgage broker than he was paying in rent. And now he's got this incredible lifestyle, and you've managed to find exactly what he needed from that buyer's brief and then go sourcing.
Tim, is that the sort of client you love working with?
I do, actually. I really do love working with first home buyers. I do love building portfolios out, and I've got a client that I mentioned before that I've built out the portfolio, and I love getting that win for them, but I do love setting up first home buyers. I became a mortgage broker because I bought a house when I was 18. I listened to the real estate agent, which was a family friend. He ended up selling me his townhouse, which was an absolute dud and a piece of garbage. I went to the bank, and the bank gave me terrible advice, and I ended up paying higher interest rates than I probably should have. And I worked out that property investing was a game of finance. So I'm like, I want to learn more about the game of finance so I can become a better investor. So 13 years ago, I became a mortgage broker because I didn't want anybody to get ripped off, and B, anybody to get that negative experience that I had. And I became that. And then about 2018, I sort of got sick of people. I'd get them pre-approved, and then we'd be reapproved for we'd be pre-approved for 3 months, and then you'd have to do what you need to do to get reapproved for another 3 months. And then you get to that point, it's 6 months down the road, and then you have to do a whole new application and all the fluff around. And we'd be getting 9 months into the journey, and then they're like, oh, sorry, Tim, you're a really nice guy. You give me all that good advice, but the sales agent told me if I wasn't using their broker, they wouldn't sell me the house. I was like, oh, so, I put all that time, effort, energy, advice, information, knowledge to then lose the client. So I started coaching people on how to engage with the agent, and they went from, 6 and 9 months to buy property to getting something within about 4 weeks to 6 weeks. And then COVID rolled around, and I'm like, no one really knows how to look at property in that, because there was a couple of people that would secure properties and then they'd fall over on building and pest for one reason or another. And I'm like, how did you not see that? Like, there was a crack in the brick wall and you could put your head in it. Like, how did you miss that? And it would come up on the building and pest, and then they'd be like, oh, structural engineer. And I'm like, well, what's that going to cost? And they're like, $2,500 for a report. And it's like, well, what do you want to do? Well, we don't have the money. Well, then you have to pull on building and pest. And then it's like, how did you miss that? And then they were buying like 3 or 4 properties, and they were spending, $500 or $600 a throw on building and pest reports. And I'm like, well, maybe I should come out with you, point out these little things. And then that way, if they are going to be problems and you don't want to buy it, then we don't have to waste the money on a building and pest. And I don't have to keep revising the amount of money that you're going to be able to spend.
Yeah, right.
So it's almost independent protection services against losing money than anything else.
Yeah. So, and then obviously sniffing out those good deals.
And I shouldn't just say losing money. Actually, what I really took away from your website was losing time. You're a big, you're very formidable on your time, and you're very protective of your time and your buyer's time, and seeking the best impact for that time, or ROI on that time.
Well, there's 2 things that I really want to do. Is I want to help buyers reclaim their Saturday.
That's
so
right.
They can get back to living. I want them to find those, diamonds in the rough, those nuggets of gold, and just because something's a bit rough doesn't mean that it's not a nugget of gold.
As long as the foundations are right, and it's
exactly.
maybe cosmetic rather than structural.
Bingo.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the old adage of buying the worst house on the best street,
And that still exists, doesn't it?
100%. I just secured one for some clients where no real structural movement in the property, 1977 original, like quite literally original throughout. Older couple, they had a chairlift in place on the front of the property. I called it a stripper pole in the bathroom, but it was a grab rail for them getting in and out of the shower and that sort of thing. And these first home buyers have secured that. And then in the exact same suburb, 3 weeks later, there's an absolute disaster where there's electrical. I was able to put my hand into the brickwork. I showed you some photos before. So there was actually switches in that same property that were fully exposed, and they were live, like as in you would turn them on and off to turn the lights on and off. And it was just the twin and earth running down with the full back of the switch exposed. So if you're not careful and you're doing it in the middle of the night, you could get a nasty 240 shock. And it's sold for $6,000 less than what my clients paid for it. And I'm just looking at it and I'm like, there's at least $100,000 worth of,
work to be done.
Just structural, just to fix the structural, because this thing, is sinking quite literally back into the earth. And then there's probably, $5,000 in electrical work to make this thing safe, that you're not going to electrocute yourself. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, they paid $6,000 less than what we paid for this thing, which is just cosmetic.
So a buyer's agent is there to do this due diligence. What are the protections there for the buyer, under indemnity or others? So if the buyers that are listening, they're thinking of getting a buyer's agent. If I go to a conveyancer and the deal doesn't get the conveyancing doesn't get completed correctly, and I'm on the hook at the end of it because we haven't settled, I've done everything that I could possibly do, money in the bank or the trust account, etc., then they're liable. How do you protect the buyers? How is it just not just a flash in the, we'll be right, mate, we'll do a good job for you?
I micromanage the hell out of my process. So I micromanage my. So I've got a deal that I'm working with at the moment, and I've spoken to my conveyancing solicitor 6 times in 5 days. in regards to this one transaction. So I micromanage that. I speak to the mortgage broker, which is part of my team, in regards to this deal, and I've spoken to him 3 times. So I just micromanage the hell out of it and make sure that there is no nasty surprises. And then that way I can give my buyers the most accurate and truthful information so they can make the best informed decision for themselves in regards to no BS data. So I just micromanage the hell out of it.
And you're sharing that on a regular basis to the buyer and
Yep.
making sure that they're.
I do WhatsApp chats, and the WhatsApp chats are constant, and there'll be phone calls and everything like that, and then emails.
Well, from the buyer's perspective, that's excellent. I think like being really connected with what you're doing, hearing from you often, is probably going to give them a lot of confidence and a lot of sense of calm. When they're dealing with, especially with first home buyers, their entire life savings, which is essentially what it is, right? So
if they make the wrong decision now, it's going to impact their future. So it's about setting the structure up that whatever, no matter who it is, if you buy the wrong property, it can be like a boat anchor. If you go out fishing in the bay and it's low tide and you throw out a really tight boat anchor, and then out of nowhere the fish start biting left, right and centre, and you're not paying attention to that boat anchor and the tide starts to rise, the water can start coming into the boat, which then impacts, causes issues, causes you to sink, other problems like that. Same with property. If you buy the wrong asset, it can be like an anchor and it can weigh you down and stop you from making that next move.
And being agile enough to make the next move or understand it.
And
touching on that first home buyers, there's been quite a bit of change here recently. And what's that happening to what you're seeing, both with inquiries? I mean, shout out to my cousin. I've been trying to get him to buy a property for the past couple of years. And the market's moved 20% in that time.
The market shifted probably 5 to 10% that first weekend.
Wow.
In that bottom bracket. Because there's a lot of people that were able to spend, say, up to $850 or $900, but because they didn't have the LMI and then all those other contributing factors, they're like, okay, so we're capped at $700 or we got to save more money.
Just catch me up here. What's the change that was made?
So the change is they went from the cap being $750,000
for first home buyers.
For first home buyers for the LMI waiver, and also that you had a certain amount of money that you could afford to be earning that year. So if you're a single, it was $125,000, and if you're a couple, it was $200,000. There's now no cap on how much you can be earning, and there is a $1 million cap on the property prices.
What did you say? LMI?
Lender's mortgage insurance.
Right. So there's no lender's mortgage insurance.
Well, it's guaranteed by the government. So you don't have to pay that lender's mortgage insurance fee up to $1 million purchase price now.
So there's less fees that they actually have to
which requires
take
less
into
savings.
account in their borrowing capacity. Their borrowing capacity is now, unlimited, so it's not restricted.
Well, it's limited to their
income
and their earnings.
So their income.
It's not capped anymore. So it was capped at $750 before, which means if you did have the borrowing capacity to go to $850, but because you didn't have the deposit and you couldn't afford to do the LMI, but if the LMI was waived, you could go to $850. That's now opened up that entire kettle of fish. So those people that were capped at $750 are now able to go to $850. The people that were capped at $750 that can go to $950 are now opened up to go to $950. So that's just moved the entire market.
And then the 5% deposit.
Yeah. What sort of deposit would for a home? Did you say 5%?
It's now 5%.
So it's around about $400,000, and then you got stamp duties and a few other fees and everything like that.
You need a $400,000.
Sorry, not 400, 40,000. You need 40,000. Sorry, 40,000, and then you need stamp duties and those other bits and pieces, which is about 3%.
Yeah, right. So for about $50,000 or $60,000 deposit, you could get loan up to about.
You get into the market.
You can get into the market.
Yeah. And where would you get into the market, Tim, for a first home buyer?
House, I'd be looking at Beenleigh, Logan, sort of like Marsden, Crestmead, in and around Regent's Park, Browns Plains.
Shout out Logan.
Yeah, shout out Logan. I'd also be looking at Ipswich. You can still get some really good value out there.
You know, I know these places, I don't know, even 10 years ago had a pretty bad rep, but when I went to Ipswich, mate, yeah.
Seriously, there's streets in Ipswich. You'll drive around and you'll come around and you'll just come to the top of this hill in Ipswich, and then all you see is those beautiful old Queenslanders lining the street.
Newtown.
Newtown, yep. And then you look out and there's nothing but the mountain range, and you just look at it and it's all green and beautiful, and you're like, where do you get this in Brisbane?
But it is a very broad question. Where should the first-time buyers? And there are a number of buyers agents out there that do talk to this, and they talk around, particularly on Instagram, the expectations of a buyer. You know, we've talked about Ascot here, and I'm a big advocate of Hendra. And Hendra was always the suburb where the children bought and the parents lived in Ascot, almost a bridesmaid suburb. But expectation is real, right? And, you know, the first property I ever bought was, I think, $400,000, right, in Hendra.
That's a few years ago now.
No, what are you saying? You know, it's true. It was many years ago. It was it was. It was 2008. And so what are we talking? 17 years ago. $400,000. The first block that we bought was $400,000. The first house that we bought was just slightly over. But that was my expectation. I was lucky enough to have worked in the UK, and I was coming back with pounds, and the conversion rate was doing well, and you know I was able to get. And I also only want to live in certain distance. I didn't want to do the Pacific Highway Drive like my father had done from Shola Park and Logan up to Coronation Drive, an hour each there and back. It's been like that for the past 40, 50 years, that piece. But the expectation is the key here, right? And when it comes down to first home buyers,
your first home's not your forever home.
Exactly.
If you can buy well for the first time round and you're willing to look at setting up an offset account. So this is not financial advice. Okay, you need to speak to your mortgage brokers, your accountants and those sort of things. But if you look at having an offset account, you can save up to get that next home by using the offset account to save you interest, keeping that debt nice and high. So my suggestion to people would be to make monthly repayments rather than weekly or fortnightly.
Debt high.
Yeah, because if it's an investment property, that's a tax deductible asset when that property turns into a rental property. So when it changes from being owner-occupier, you can't deduct anything on owner-occupiers in any shape, form, or way. But once it becomes income producing, if it's negatively geared, you can then claim that loss. So if that debt is nice and high, you can effectively get that interest money back. Now, we don't want it to be staying negatively geared forever, because who wants to spend $1 to get 30 cents back? You know, it's not the smartest thing. But on the flip side of that coin, if I have two choices where it's like, okay, I can spend $1 and get nothing but over here on my principal place of residence or my owner-occupier home, or I can spend $1 and get 30 cents back over here, I want to spend $1 and get 30 cents back over here, because it's like, well, that's logical. I'm only losing 70 over losing the full $1. So I want my cash deposit on my forever home to be as big as possible, so my debt is as small as possible, while my investment, where I can potentially claim that money back, is as large as possible.
And when you're going to leave that principal place, currently there's no capital gains tax impacted on that. Who knows?
Yeah.
So effectively, you know, with these first home buyers that may eventually move on and get an investment property, if it was to continue as that particular property, or it's a secondary property, those costs are somewhat tax deductible off that, because it's seen as income from the rent.
Yeah, so you need to speak to your accountant to get the proper processing and everything. But once you move out of the property, you should actually get some valuations and stuff like that done on there to set that cost basis to it. From my understanding is, if you sell one property, which is a principal place of residence, in 1 year, there's no capital gains on it. So if you lived in that property for, say, 3 years, and then you sell it within 6 years, you effectively pay no capital gains on that sale for holding that property. Please discuss that with your accountant. The rules and regulations are changing constantly. So
there is things you can do.
Yes.
And I think this is what's really interesting for me, right? So I only have the one property. We bought it about 5 years ago in Norman Park, on Lewis Street. Norman Avenue. I love the area, got very fortunate picking it up. And we've essentially been sort of on the fence about, do we sell it or do we renovate it or do we
sell
it?
It's a floodplain. Sell it.
Well, this is what people are saying, right?
So 1978.
You've been listening to last week's podcast.
Well, yes. But also, I don't buy floodplains.
Yeah, that's what Belinda said too.
Yeah, I don't buy floodplains, right?
And I just understand that. Obviously, there's the impact of the past 3 floods that we've had here in Southeast Queensland.
Well, it's more than 3.
Sorry.
So we had 2011, 2013, which everybody forgets about, but Google it. It existed. We've got 2022.
Yep.
We got 2024. And then we've got the regional areas that flooded in 2025. So up near me in Moreton Bay and down in Logan, a lot of areas in there flooded in 2025. And if I look at it and I go, well, 1974 happened, and then there was nothing until 2011. Then we had 2011, 2013, and then it's like, okay, from 2013 to 2022, there was nothing, but then there was 2022, 2024, and 2025. It's like, well...
It could happen again, is what we're trying to say.
Yeah, it's probably going to happen again. How bad and how much, I don't know. But no one knew how bad and how much it was going to be every other time that's happened.
And is it a number, roughly, like a percentage number, or like 50% of the buyers, worry about it, 50% don't? Or is it like...
I have just a hard company policy.
Okay.
Just don't do it.
Does that include overland flow?
No.
Okay.
I'm fine with overland flow because it's like, well, you're at the bottom of the hill, water flows downhill.
Yes.
We just got to be mindful of drainage and a few other bits and pieces, but as long as it's not coming through the house, not an issue.
And there's very stringent development restrictions, though. Generally, Brisbane City Council and other councils, I would imagine, that if the overland flow exists, then you need to build according to the covenants of that to protect. You can't protect your property and cause risk to everybody else's.
Yeah.
You need to
the neighbours.
Yeah.
Backyard.
But a lot of those new housing estates that have got those overflow issues, they're gearing their streets up to become basically really large drains to take all that water away.
So you're seeing a lot across Southeast Queensland, and there have been a lot of estates like, we've talked about Logan, quite in depth, but, between Brisbane and the Gold Coast is now a suburb. So it's connected. Not a suburb, a region, sorry.
Yeah.
And it's connected. I remember years ago driving along there and it was just bush.
Yeah.
Now the Sunshine Coast, between here and the Sunshine Coast, is almost doing the same.
Yeah, so there is a plan within the regional. So Queensland government put out a plan back in 2009 through to 2031. And then there's another one that they updated in 2017 or 2018, which goes through till 2040. So they really want to stop, there's a thing called Noosa Gatta, and they really want to stop that spread from Noosa in the north all the way down to Coolangatta in the south. So there's 2 green zones that are in there. One of them, I'm really grateful they left in there because it's pretty much a floodplain. The other one is the state forest. So you've got the Beerwah State Forest, which is basically a 13-kilometre strip, which is just going to be state forests and green trees and that sort of break up to sort of stop the 2 regions becoming one. And then the other one's in and around Yatala area, and it's all the Jacobs Well, all through there, which is all
Stapleton.
the cane fields. Stapleton, yeah, it's all the cane fields out there. And that's pretty much a floodplain through there. So if they were to build housing estates and everything, they'd really need to be putting in some serious flood mitigation through there because, 2024, 2025, Logan got quite messed up with their floods.
But that also talks back to this expectation issue of a first-time buyer. If they are, it does come down, like your first-time buyer moving from Ascot to having to be closer to work up, in the Sunshine Coast region.
He's a doctor, so he technically has to be within 20 minutes of the hospital.
So moving to the region as such, and so that obviously plays a predominant role in your buyer's brief. It's what are they prepared to travel? How long are they prepared to travel? And then trying to adjust their expectations.
Yeah. It's having those conversations in relation to what is potentially achievable, and it's also looking at land or land content. So, hey, maybe we could look at getting a unit in, say, Toowong, which is going to be closer for your work and less travel. There might only be 10 in the complex, and we might be super lucky, and it might be on a 2,000 square metre block of land. So now, effectively, you don't own that 200 square metres of land. It's not yours. You can't go and put a little veggie patch on or anything like that. But you're effectively controlling 200 square metres of land in Toowong. And is land in Toowong going to appreciate more than, say, land in Ipswich? And if I look at the supply factor and I look at Ipswich, I go, well, there's the greatest Springfield development. There's all the development they're doing down through Redbank Plains. There's all the development that they're doing out in Ripley, Deebing Heights. And then you look at Wooloowin on the other side of the Amberley RAF base, and also Rosewood. They're doing a development of around about 90 homes out there. It's like the supply of land in that area is immense. If you're in that inner city area of Ipswich itself, there's great value to be had in there. And there's going to be great capital appreciation as that city grows and matures over time. But there's a lot of supply that's coming on around there. And you've got to find that right buyer who's willing to buy. Because at some point, whether it be you or your kids or your grandkids, this asset's going to get sold. So it's also looking at that secondary factor. And it's like, okay, if we can find something that has got, maybe $2,000 to $4,000 worth of body corporate fees per year, you don't have to worry about the insurance side of things. You're going to control 200 square metres, and we're about 3 suburbs out from the CBD. Well, that's going to probably appreciate harder than maybe a 600 square metre block in Leichhardt right next to the Amberley RAF base in Ipswich.
And especially as you've got this condensed growth of people coming to the city, wanting to. So again, back to the expectations. Their expectations is they can live in Toowong, right? Or they can live, 25 minutes, 10 to 15, 25 minutes from work. But sometimes you have to readjust that expectation. But by doing that, you're also going to have a better longevity or a potentially better outcome when you come to sell.
Yeah.
So when you're preparing the buyer,
yeah.
Let's go back to you. I want to really unpack around you being a mortgage broker first, a buyer's agent second, now predominantly a buyer's agent, but having with a one-stop shop, would we call it?
So the overall company name is Moreton Bay Finance Proprietary Limited, and then I've got 2 sub-brands. So I've got Moreton Bay Finance Broker, and that's where the brokerage team in there. So I mentor those guys now. I'm basically retired and stepped back from that side of the business. I've got 2 guys there, and I've got 2 new guys coming on in the new year, which I'm going to be mentoring and getting them up to speed and downloading all my information and knowledge to them. And then I've got the buyer's agency side of the business, which is my main focus, which is the IPS buyer's agent side.
And that's where you like to spend your time.
Yes. Yeah, I spend 90% of my time in the buyer's agency.
But you've come in there with that financial background, yes, and broker background, so yes, you're preparing the buyers. I
will talk to clients in regards to that finance picture, but I really, really stress quite heavily that I am not their broker. They need to consult with their broker, and I am their buyer's agent, because there's a compliance side of things on there. If I'm twisting your arm to spend an extra $5,000 on a property now, that can be deemed negatively in the broker space, because it's like, well, that's $5,000 more of lending potentially, or that's an extra $4,000 in lending if we're at 80%. That's more commission to you. Are you working in the best interest of the client? It's like, well, yes, because we're securing your dream home, and that's that. So I really segregate those 2 hats. I will give them some suggestions and recommendations. I'll also tell them what to say. And then I'll go back to my brokerage team and say, hey guys, can you talk to the client in regards to A, B, C, X, Y, Z? They need to get a better understanding in relation to this, because they need to make a more informed decision. And it's all about that education for me, because the more educated, the more understanding you can get, the better decision you can make. And with better questions comes better answers. If you don't know what you don't know, how are you able to ask questions? And I like that education piece, because it's like, if the more informed and knowledgeable you are, the better it is. And the more simply I can explain it, it proves that I'm more of an expert. Because, you've got those two different types of experts. You've got the guys that can explain it to a 1-year-old, and then you've got the guys that need to explain it to a professor. And it's like, well, you probably don't understand it because you can only explain it to a professor. The guys you want to deal with are the ones that can explain it to a 1-year-old.
Absolutely. I think that trend, that's so powerful, right? Yeah. Because it translates into many different arenas in it. Mm. The experts are truly the ones who can simplify complex things and have them understood. I generally ask a question about red flags and when it comes to actually looking at properties. But what I'm curious about is, when you're looking at a mortgage broker, is there some red flags that you should sort of look out for in that realm? It's okay if you don't, if you want to.
When I was brokering full time, I had a policy of no loyalty to anybody.
As in the bank brands?
Bank brands.
The labels, yeah.
Yep. So to the point that there was actually one bank I refused to get accredited with. That may or may not be Australia's largest bank. I just utterly refused, because I was like, if your only option is that bank, I can't do my job properly. Okay. A red flag for me is when you have a look at the credit guide of the broker. If I was to see any more than 50% to one lender, I'd be sort of sitting there looking at it going, you're a mobile lender for that bank, for that brand. Yeah. Okay. I have a bit of a hard rule within my business that if we're creeping up to 20% to one lender, I'd sort of have a chat to my team and give them a bit of a tap over the head and go, hey guys, are you getting lazy? Or are you actually finding the right solution for the client? And if they can come back with genuine answers of why it was the right solution, I go, okay, you're doing your job. If they can't, I sit there and go, we're not lazy. I want you to make sure that we're customer focused first. And, you can't say best, because what's best today may not be best tomorrow. And how do you define best? So for me, it's finding that right fitting loan, hopefully now and into the future. And look, banks change, rules change, everything's changed, which is why you should be reviewing them. But
I was going to ask this. So how often should we be going to a broker, a mortgage broker, and saying, look?
I have two beliefs on this side of things. You should be probably reviewing them every 6 to 18 months. So 6 months to 18 months, or somewhere in there, what that right fit is for you. And you should be trying to reprice those loans to make sure you're on a competitive rate. I don't believe you should be churning the book. So a lot of brokers out there will churn their book. And that's where they'll go and refinance you to a different lender, take it out over 30 years. They might do the right thing and drop it back to 28 years. Okay. And they do that every 2 years because they get a new upfront commission. So, yeah, so they're doing that every 2 years. I don't like that, because the first 7 years of your home loan, you're only really paying that interest component back to the bank. It's after that point that you're not. So I'm more of the belief of, if I can save you 35 points with your current lender, which is 0.35% with your current lender, sharpest rate in the market at the moment might be 50 points cheaper. It's like, well, that 15 points is not really worth it with the cost of moving from lender A to lender B. And if you're not wanting extra money, we're probably better off staying here, because you're actually going to get ahead quicker and faster.
And you can go from that down to that 35 point saving.
Yeah.
A good mortgage broker is always going to put the customer's well-being and decision ahead of their own fiscal gain.
Yeah, so if your broker's reaching out to you every 2 years saying, let's refinance, for me, that would be a bit of a red flag. If I'm looking at their credit guide, because every broker has to supply a credit guide up front, and you need that before you can give any real credit advice or anything like that, and you're looking at their list of top 6 lenders, and let's say lender A and lender B, okay, or bank A, bank B, right? And let's just say that they're 2 of the majors and they make up 60 or 70% of their book. I'd be sitting there looking at it going, are you a 1 or 2 bank kind of broker? And I fit these 2 banks, not that's the right option for me. You know, are they manufacturing the right option?
And you, so this is awesome. Like I've used a mortgage broker before, and we actually had a very good experience with it.
Fantastic.
Which was awesome. You know,
brilliant. Go back to them if they're looking after you and they're doing a good job. And if you have a look at their thing, and I'd say under 70%, like if they've used say 13 different lenders and nobody's over about 30%, keep working with them. It's hard to find good talent.
And I guess that was really insightful. I love listening to that. But I do want to bring it back to now. So you've got all of this experience as a mortgage broker. What are the red flags you look for in a buyer's agent? And is it the similar sort of focus as when the buyer's agent is not prioritizing the their customer? That's really
my red flags are people that are sitting there going, this is the next hotspot. Now, you could say that I've been guilty because I did a little blog up at the beginning of the year, and I'm doing a bit of a review of it, and I'm actually thinking of taking it down because I'm changing my opinion on it, of saying, you know, that Kingaroy Nanango was potentially a hotspot.
What is a hotspot?
Hotspot is somewhere where it's potentially going to go up, and you're going to see that sort of capital appreciation within the property and everything like that. And I was looking at Kingaroy and Nanango. There was a lot of development going on out there and a lot of stuff, and you could still buy property out there for like 300 grand. Well, that's shifted now. It's like 500,000 for it, and it's like, well, do I want to be in a regional town where it's 500,000? Vacancy rates are still below 1%, but it's like that price is now shifted, and it's like, well, is the value actually there anymore? And being a regional centre, if the market does pull back and does come back, they're the ones that get hit the hardest, and they get hit really hard. So for me, it's those hotspots sort of protecting sort of thing. There was a data-driven company that sort of go, you know, when you go and work with, you know, a buyer's agent and you're, you know, they try and sell you on the one location and everything. Don't go to them. We buy all over and everything like that. And yet they had one of their hotspots on one of their ads was Coomera Island. Now, if you actually have a look at Coomera Island, it's just mud flats and mangroves. And it's like, why are you promoting Coomera Island when it's just mud flats, guys? Like,
so it was just hot air. They're just
spruiking to try and get people in the front door, and it's like, really? So I like to sit down. I like to have a conversation. I like to try and fill the client's needs, which is why I buy Southeast Corner, because there is no one shoe fits all. Everyone's got different size feet. I will put forward cases and suggestions of different aspects, but I'm guided by the client, and I want to knock it out of the park for every one of my clients that I work with. And I want to sit there, like at the end of the year, every year I do a top 5. Okay, so I've done 16 purchases at the moment. I've got another 2 that I'm hoping will go from being potentially, hopefully pre-contract and we get a contract on one of them, and the other one under contract but not unconditional to unconditional, and that's 18 for the year, right? And then I got my top 5. So my number 1 buy was at the beginning of the year. We purchased a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-car garage. Once again, it was for someone that needed to be within 20 minutes of the hospital, and we're just within that 20-minute bracket, but it's a 531 square metre block. It's got overland flow on it. And the AVM, the bank valuation, came in at $997,000. So they made $147,000 by just signing the contract. You know, my first home buyers, we bought for $895 up at Maroochydore, and I reckon fair market value for that in a realistic world is $1 million. I've got to be careful in case that agent sees it, because she'll never sell me another property, and then she'll overinflate the number. But we've done well on that.
This happens where a buyer's agent finds such a good deal.
Well,
that you can get $100,000 just by signing the contract on it.
Well, I've just bought one. We're not unconditional on it yet. So this one, if it goes unconditional, will be my number 3. It's out in Wynnum West. The seller wanted 1.65. The agent was fishing for 1.65. We paid 1.55. So we were able to get a really good deal for that.
And so them having you as their advocate, their representation, doing the negotiation, getting actual valuations and understanding the data-driven valuations of what's actually things they're selling for.
I don't do official valuations because I'm only a real estate agent. So
No, but you're getting that data off.
I can get that data quite easily
Right.
from the back end. I'll do my own appraisals and everything like that. But yes, I can still order valuations through the bank, and I can get those vals quite easally.
Yeah, I noticed you made a comment on one of our episodes, just around that, explaining to buyers about the different types of valuations.
So AVMs is an automatic valuation modeling. So it's a automatic modeling valuation. So it's just basically an algorithm. So it takes in all the data of all the sold properties in the local area. It compiles what the numbers are, and then it spits out a number, and usually a bit of a range. And if it falls in that range or below that range, they just take the AVM. The next form is a desktop, which is done by a licensed valuer. And they actually sit at the computer. They look over the property in regards to what it stacks up to, and they look at all the photos online, and they value it on the back of just what the computer sort of says and what they can see in reality. A curbside or drive-by is where they'll do all that data research on the back end with the computer, and they'll actually drive by the front of the property, and they'll check it out and make sure that it is actually what it looks like, and it doesn't look like it's had a massive renovation. Then you've got short form, where they actually walk through the property, and they'll do a little bit of a dive into the property market and everything like that, but it's not a deep dive. It's just a more testing the water, and they provide that. And that's what, if it's going to go to a bank val, 98% of bank vals are short forms. Okay, if it's going to that point, very few are going to be the curbside or the desktop. And if they're not going to bank val, they're either doing an AVM or they're doing just taking contract. A lot of banks, if it's sub 80, are just doing contracts now. They're not even bothered doing valuations. So whatever the contract price is, they take that as the valuation.
And how often can a bank valuation be ordered?
Once every 3 months. They're good for 3 months.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Then you've got...
And if you're not happy with one?
Get a different valuer.
Okay, so you can do that.
You have to go to a different bank. So you can't get one with the same bank. So if you've gone to...
It's a great bit of advice.
Bank A, right? And Bank A is your lead choice, and Bank A comes in short on the valuation, you can challenge it. Okay? I've got a decent challenge process. I've challenged 21 valuations.
I'd love to know it.
I've had 18 overturned. Well, I can share it with you later if you want.
Because I'll share a story. I got a valuation, and it wasn't as I expected. And I argued it, and I've been with this bank for many, many years. And it was just because there was no comparables, right? And
it's hard.
It is very hard. Yeah. It is very hard when there's no comparables. So anyway, I was uplifting the property, i.e. getting a approval to demolish and build. And in developer land, that's a benefit. Yes. To most people, that's a benefit, apart from this particular bank. And anyway, then they found that there was a demolition approval in it. So then they said, we're only going to value it as land. Yeah. And again, no comparables in the industry. So I took matters into my own hand, and that's why I'd love to know how to do that. But and I did that by going and then taking it to market and getting market valuation, which is the best form of valuation, the valuation where somebody's going to pay you for it. But it's really interesting for the listeners, particularly the buyers or potentially investment buyers that are trying to understand where they sit and where their price sits.
How accurate is something like the realestate.com.au valuation? Absolute garbage.
I think on realestate.com, my house is worth 1.5, and I can tell you right now, it's not worth 1.5. Yeah, right. If someone was willing to give it to me, sure, I'll take 1.5, but it's not.
And I've been in the situation where, and if realestate.com.au happen to sponsor this podcast at any particular time, maybe we
might have to edit that bit out.
No, we definitely won't.
Will you come on our podcast and tell us how it works?
Well, exactly. I think that shout out to them. But I've been in the other situation where the valuation might say, then you get these little things in, what is this street worth? Is your property? And you're like, well, no, it's worth more than that. And there's always the vendor prejudice.
See, the problem with that is you're looking at data, and most of the modelling that those guys work on are 3 to 6 months old, right? The best data is current data. You were mentioning something before that you've got a little bit of an inside track on a property and everything like that, where you know what it's sold for, but that hasn't hit the sold section yet. So another house that you're sort of, talking about and looking at and everything like that, once it hits the sold section, that value of that property is going to go up. So looking in that window is where you're going to get your best sort of outcome. And it's having that inside information or being able to get that inside information. And it's that relationship building with some of the sales agent. Now, there's some really amazing sales agents out there that won't give away a birdie. And there's some brilliant buyer's agent aligned sales agents out there that are absolutely amazing and will give you everything under the sink in data and information. And the more information you can have as a buyer, the more informed you can make that decision.
Yeah. Talking about buyers and being informed, it's not just about data though, I would imagine. It's about timing as well.
It's also about instinct.
And instinct, okay.
Yeah, so I can go and look at all the screen data, I can look at all the back end, and I can give you a price appraisal range on a property, and I can narrow it down to about 20. So here's a real world example for you, okay? I had some clients where I was looking at buying out in Ipswich for them, first home buyers, moving up from Canberra, okay? And they loved this house, which was in Beval, but Beval, where the house was here, then there was a park, and then it was Newtown. So it was closer to Newtown than really Beval. Okay, and I appraised this property $1,050,000 to 1.1. Okay, I sent my colleague out to go through the open home to get a bit of an idea of how many people were at the open home, because I was looking at other properties for them and doing other bits and pieces, and I can't be in two places at one, and I'm not going to go to something that's outside their budget and waste time and get their hopes and dreams up. And when I was having the conversation with them, I could tell on the phone they didn't believe that it was going to sell for 1.1. When it hit the sold section, it hit the sold section at 1.1. So even though I did a $50,000 price range of a mean of 50 to 1.1, I hit the price right on the nose. And I was a little bit worried that I was going to be a bit on the low side. I was a little bit worried with the amount of people that were at this open home, the amount of genuine buyers and interest that people were showing, that it might have sold for a 111, 1125, 113. And I'm like, maybe I'm wrong by 10 grand. So I will do two. I'll do a pre and a post, because at the open home, I'm looking for all those problems within the house, which I'm talking about with the structural issues. If it is a cracking property, I'm also trying to overhear what the agent's saying. I'm also trying to look and listen to what the other buyers are saying within the room as well. I'm trying to get that feel and that gauge of the vibe in the room.
That's what you mean by instinct.
Yeah.
Right? You walk into there.
Yeah. And it's
It
like,
takes that experience.
what is the market going to pay for this? How much is the market going to buy this for? Now, I went to a duplex out at Kalanga. The agent was saying, oh, look, there's no real market valuation, nothing's really sold in the last 6 months that's similar to this property. Last one that I can find was a while ago. We feel it's going to be high eights to, early to mid nines. Well, we've offered $1,015,000 off the bat. So I looked at the house and I went, this thing, You can strata title them, and each one of them is worth 600 grand. So it's 1.2 end value. It's probably going to cost you about 12 to 20 grand to strata title them. So it's the cost is not body corporate. Yeah, right. Yep. Southerners call it strata titling. We call it body corporate up here. I kind of feel that down the track, a lot more people are going to be from the southern states rather than Queensland. If I say body corporate, they're going to sit there scratching their head going, what's that? So same sort of thing. So strata or body corp, same sort of thing. So it's a title where there's in a sense a body corporate system, but when there's only 2 properties within it, there's no real body corporate because it's you and your neighbour and you sort of deal with it on that side of thing. And in that situation, 9 times out of 10, the only thing that's shared is the insurance. So there's nothing else really shared or worried about. So you don't really need that body corporate. Townhouses units, a little bit different. There'll be a body corporate, potentially a better corporate management company, and then a actual committee of owners that sort of get together.
I saw something incredible on the Barracuda Advocate yesterday. Yeah. It's this guy with his head in his hand, and he's like, I thought I'd be able to overturn the body corporate decisions by joining the body corporate, but now I've aged 50 years. And it is just it can be a nightmare, can't it?
I have a general rule of thumb that ideally you want to be under 12. So if we're going to go into that sort of body corporate environment, you want to be under 12 units or townhouses.
Yeah, not 12 years of age, because everybody acts like they're 12 years of age.
I was thinking 12.
No, 12 units or townhouses. Ideally no more than about 20. And what you'll find is there'll be, in those big complexes, it gets a lot more political. In the smaller ones, it's not so much political. So you'll get 4 main groups. You get those that have power, those that want power, those that just want to be left the hell alone, and those that are new that don't know where they are. And the newbies will be courted by both sides over here. The ones that want to be left.
This is within the body corporate structure. It's like a series.
Let's say you've got 12 owners. They're all of their.
Buying for
Well, it's all of their. Let's say it's their life savings or their money, their investment money. It's in that. Now, if you're living there as an owner of that particular, and it is your life savings or the majority of it, it's your kingdom. It's your castle. You share that castle with 11 other people or 11 other families. But you still believe. Now, if you come from if your belief system is that your way is right, and a lot of people have that, then you want that echoed.
Yeah, right.
And it's not just talking over the fence. This is now talking to 11 other fences, plus the external fence, plus the other neighbours within that.
Yeah. It gets really, the smaller complexes, those that want power and those that have power are usually on the committee anyway. And the ones that want power that don't have it are usually the committee members, and the ones that don't want them in there are usually the chair, the secretary, the treasurer, those more sort of actual powerful spots.
Dealing with a council or dealing with a school PNC?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and look, when I first bought my townhouse, I was very hands-on. And then after about 10 years of ownership, I met my wife. We were dating at that point in time. I got more interested in her, more interested in my work. I then shifted to the model of, I don't care, I'll just pay my bill and leave me the hell alone. And I'll tell you what, when you get that attitude, the stress just lifts right off your shoulders.
Yeah. And it removes that emotion.
And there was only 8 properties in that complex. So,
and there was already politics and...
Yeah, it's just painful. Yeah, so I highlight that.
What are the sorts of things like, what colour is the fence, or are we installing this thing? Or
if we are going down the point of a unit or an apartment, I kind of talk to my buyers in regards to have kind of a list of we don't do. We don't do underground car parks. We don't do gates. We don't do lifts. We don't do pools.
Right. So you're saying if you don't buy properties with these things?
Within a body corporate
environment. Within a body corporate.
Because they can be extremely expensive. Like lifts, They last 10 to 15 years. They constantly need maintenance. You know, you're talking 200 grand to replace a lift in a big building or more. You know, it's just money for thing. On-site managers, you know, they're going to want a salary of 70 grand a year, and then they're going to take 4 weeks holidays, and they need super.
And they also believe they're the kings of the kingdom.
Yeah, they also
queens.
believe that they're the kings of the kingdom. So you got those on-site managers. So you're paying body corporate fees to pay somebody's wage, and then they won't do something for you fast enough, so you'll hate them. And it might be
they've got another X amount of people they have to deal with all their issues. Yeah.
You know, you might be the 10th thing on their list, and they might get to you in 3 days' time, but you wanted it fixed yesterday. They're the worst person in the world. And it's like, well, come on, guys.
And you're going through the process when you're working with the buyer to educate them on these.
Yeah,
and the
highlight these
pitfalls.
things and just say, look, guys, there's potentially problems. In saying that, I will buy properties where there is a pool. I will buy properties where there is a gate. And I just did that in Maroochydore. But it's like the location of this outweighs the problem of that, and the price we're getting it for, who cares? You know? So there is sometimes that I will
flexibility.
Negate those bits. But it's like, this deal is so amazing. You know, if we could buy something that was, say, a 3-bedroom apartment with ocean views, it had a lift, it had a pool, it had an on-site manager, but, you know, 2 weeks ago, one sold for 3.2 million, and we can get this for 2 million. It's like, well, let's buy it.
Yeah.
Who cares about all the other problems? It's 1.2 under market.
Yeah. So, Tim, what we'd love to do, and this is going to be a really fascinating snapshot in 60 seconds, we'd like to take our guest and get them to focus on a suburb. A particular suburb that they like, they love, that they've been in and engaged with, and Southeast Queensland gives you a big platter to choose from. But I'm going to ask you 10 surefire questions, all about that suburb, and just the first answers that come off the tongue, and then Eugene will ask you some questions around finance and around budgets and what buyers can expect. So, what's your suburb?
Let's go Samford, because that's where I want to be. Samford Valley.
Samford.
Yeah, let's go there.
It.
Yeah.
So you got a horse?
No.
No? Do you want horses?
Just want a bit of acreage.
Just don't want to be anywhere near a body corporate. That's what
yes.
it is. All right. So let's go. Samford?
Yeah, let's go Samford.
All right. So what is the number one thing, and just before we get underway, Samford in Southeast Queensland?
Yes.
Right,
yes,
so
yes.
What would we say, 20 Ks, 25 Ks out of CBD?
Yeah, probably about 20.
About 20?
About 20.
We'll put up a little little map of where Samford is, but beautiful rural, lots of horses, lots of farms.
Very picturesque with the mountain range.
I think they've
background.
Have the Comiskis just put a new pub in there?
They own the pub. They haven't upgraded it, but they're doing one at...
I thought they had. I went out there a couple of months ago, and it was much better. And then I was speaking to somebody and they said it wasn't as good.
No, it's...
Okay.
I've been there and it's not
as good.
Eden's Hill, Sandstone Point, which are their pubs, absolutely spectacular, amazing.
They just bought another 8 hectares I saw yesterday.
Well, he did.
At the back end of
he bought the old golf course that was behind his.
Yeah, so it's connected.
So it's going to be interesting what he does.
We'll probably get them in one time, but just incredible that.
Well, they own half of Brendale.
Delivery, right?
So they own a lot of land in Brendale. They actually own the Umundi Brewing Co. up on the coast. So that beer and everything is theirs. And they own 3 pubs up there.
You know what is good up there? The one next door, the Mattos.
At Umundi Brewing?
The Mattios.
In Umundi.
In Umundi. So
yeah, they own that. That's theirs.
You sure?
No.
Disclaimer.
We'll double check that. That might be wrong.
Shout out to them and congratulations on their purchase up there. So let's go into Samford, because it is great.
Yes.
The pub needs some improvement. Shout out to them. They probably need to. That's what people are saying. But what is the number one thing buyers love about Samford?
I'd say the acreage and the lifestyle. It's a little bit like a country town. There's no Woolworths in there. It's a Drake's, which is awesome, and just that bit of space. And the picturesque sunsets you can get from the mountain range.
Beautiful. And what's the biggest mistake people make when buying in Samford?
Overpaying with a certain agent out there that gets amazing prices and does a great job for us sellers, but not so much for the buyers.
Okay. And which area of Samford? Because it's quite expansive. Which
I
area of
really wanna
Samford
be in the
delivers?
I really want to be in the Royals estate, which is that sort of blue chip of the blue chip area.
Okay, the Royals Estate, is it called?
Yeah. So there's 2 pockets of it either side of the main drag, and it's all within 10 minutes of the
What
main
size
drag.
blocks are they?
About 6,000 square meters.
Beautiful. So you can do a lot on 6,000 square meters and still
Yeah.
manage it and
Yeah.
still get your weekends back to
Yes.
not just buy property, but also
And then
not have
sit
to,
there on the mower all
to
weekend.
mow lawns.
Yeah.
Now, is Samford still undervalued, or is the market caught up?
No, the market's shifted, and it's probably high side fair market, I'd say. Maybe starting to get a little bit expensive. Market's moved a lot in a lot of places. There's one at Wilston that just sold for 7.85 million. So, which is insane. Like, don't get me wrong, beautiful home, but you know, Wilson 5k ring, 7.85. Like,
7.85. What property was that?
it was a 6-bedroom, 4-bathroom, had a really nice pool. I can show you after.
Yeah, okay. What's the price point that's most competitive in Samford?
Probably around about that sort of 1.8 to 2.6.
Right. So you're getting a lot of bang for buck if you're getting a 6,000 square meters, 20 kilometers.
You're
from the
not
city.
getting that in the Royals estate. You're getting that in
Okay.
that sort of outer region
Outer
area, and you're ranging from 4,000 to probably 8,000 square meters.
Okay.
A little bit older home and everything like that. The Royal estate, you're probably starting high 3s, low 4s.
Okay. And what is one thing only locals know about Samford?
There's a really great pizza shop out there.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you remember the name? You'll have to give it to us
I
after. We'll tag
I
them
do,
below.
but I don't want every man and his dog going there
right.
because yes,
Right, local secret.
yes.
Okay, local C. You
Well-
got to move to Samford and become the pizza joint, or you'll have to contact Tim, and Tim will tell you over a coffee out at Samford.
Problem is, I don't want to get to a point where every man and his dog's buying pizza there, and I ring up to get mine. And they're
Well,
like,
now they're
"It's a
buying.
3-hour
Now
wait."
they're going to be buying in Royal Estate. But and finally, if you could only inspect one property or one area in Samford this weekend, where should the buyers be headed?
Royal estate.
Royal Estate.
Yeah, it's the blue chip of the blue chip.
Beautiful.
Right. Okay. Well, that was awesome.
There was.
I love listening to these answers.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a price point, and you tell me
Yeah.
what suburb you would buy in with that money.
Okay.
Okay. Here we go. So $5 million. Where are you buying?
Sunshine Coast. I'd be buying in Coolum, waterfront Coolum Beach. I'd be buying Phrygian Beach or Sunrise.
Tim, your depth of knowledge on suburbs is just blowing me away.
What side of David Low Way?
Oceanside.
Oceanside.
Yep.
Yeah, and Phrygian is untapped, I think, still. In fact, if you like, Noosa Heads is my Doonan Noosa Heads, but Noosa Heads my holiday. Doonan's my relax and the hinterland. But you come down there and you go Sunshine, Doonan, Doonan.
It's a suburb up
It's
there.
a suburb.
Yeah.
Do they own the Doonan Hotel as well?
Yeah.
Masters, good on them.
They are really smart business people. I'd love to sit down and just have an hour chat and just
There you go.
download so much information from them.
Rob, meet Tim. Tim, meet Rob. Connect off.
He's not going to see this.
I'll make sure that he sees it. So, and happy birthday for yesterday, Rob.
Yeah.
He was on Instagram. And so you go back and you go Sunrise, Sunshine Beach, and then Phrygian's just there.
Yeah.
Absolute classic. Untapped. Sorry.
Well, so that was a great answer then, right? 5 million. All right, so let's go. 3 million. So you're buying.
Samford or waterfront, Scarborough, Shorncliffe, waterfront through there.
Gray have done massive things up there, and developers have been doing massive things up there at Scarborough.
Yeah. Not Brighton waterfront because that floods a little bit. But Shorncliffe and that, you're right on top of the cliffs and you can get some really beautiful.
Away from the floods.
Yeah.
Shout out to the jetty to jetty fun
Yes.
run.
Yes.
Yep.
Some
Yep.
things to announce there next year. But
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, another great answer. All right, let's go down to that $1.5 to $2 million mark. Let's say 2 million.
I would probably be looking in the 7k ring around Brisbane. North or south.
Norman Park, maybe?
It's probably going to be a little bit. Oh yeah, maybe Norman Park. I'm thinking more like sort of Carina, Carindale, back around to sort of Mount Gravatt, like in that Mansfield School catchment area out there for the people that want to be in that sort of pocket. Stafford Heights. Actually, the Hills District, you can get something really pretty special in the Hills District for $2 million. So that's Everton Hills, Arana Hills, and Ferny Hills.
Stafford Heights. Is that the same thing?
A little bit over from Stafford Heights, but Stafford Heights, you'd be able to get something that would have city views for $2 million.
That's heading out towards Samford, is it? One way?
Not really.
Samford goes
Stafford Heights is more north,
Yeah, right.
where Everton Hills, Ferny Hills is northwest on the way to...
On the way. That's the only problem with Samford is there's no tunnel.
No, you have to sort of go over that little bit of a mountain range.
No, we just want a tunnel. No, I'm talking a real tunnel. A tunnel from CBD, right? From
No.
all the way out.
No.
Oh, that'd be great. Then I could live out there.
See, that's the problem then. There'd be too many of you that
There'd
move
be
out.
so many people going out there.
Yeah.
The gatekeeper is the mountain.
Yes.
It's the
Yes.
45 minutes to get out there.
Yeah. I love that because I know some different ways to get out.
Oh, secret.
Local knowledge.
Local knowledge.
I don't live in Samford, for the record. I want to be there. I'm in Warner, so I'm in one of the neighbouring suburbs.
Right.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
1 million.
1 million?
Where are you buying?
I'll probably be buying... I'd be looking at Ipswich, in and around that sort of Newtown, Eastern Heights, Silkstone. I'd be careful in Silkstone because there's a little bit of mining overland stuff like that in there, but just be mindful of those little pockets and everything like that. I'd be looking at probably Alex Hills, Capella Bar on the south side, out there in the Redlands, closer to the water, that sort of thing. And then I'd probably be considering Strathpine, Braid Park, Warner, Joyner, that sort of pocket, and getting something really nice for that sort of $1 million mark through there.
That's a real bang for buck
Yeah.
around those areas. Isn't it?
And it's lifestyle in as well with, there's some beautiful places you listed there.
Well, there's a lot of good zoning that's coming up through Strathpine. So over the next 20 years, that's going to completely change. It's a bit like what they did to Redcliffe before they've actually started building everything. So 20 years ago, they changed all the zoning through there and made it a lot higher and a lot more denser. And now that development is starting to catch up. Same sort of thing with Strathpine. They've done it, but the developers haven't moved in there in a massive way yet. So it's going to be interesting to see the change and the gentrification through there over the next 20 years. And that capital uplift that's going to come from that.
Well, those insights are absolutely incredible.
One more. Let's go 500,000.
There's nobody... Okay, can we...
You don't know. There could be a problem.
There's not.
We're Western Australia.
No, I only buy Southeast Queensland. Look,
Get anything for 500,000.
I was going to say, problem is the success that it's had. So Kingaroy, like there's a lot of development going on out there. There's a lot of science and stuff like that. Problem is the market's already jumped, and I'm now worried that it might be in bubble territory. And it's like, so if you can buy something for 450 or 400 out there, and it's really close to CBD, not too far from the hospital, I'd consider Kingaroy. But if it's 500 or more, I wouldn't touch it, just purely because I'm worried it's bubble territory. And if there is a 10 or 15% pullback, you just lost 50 grand. So I'd consider there, and that'd be probably about it. Maybe Warwick floods. So Warwick floods.
There's no flooding.
Buy some canoes to give you guys.
Yeah, so that's what I was talking with you. The market's frothy at the moment. Most people have forgotten about all the floods.
Yeah.
I'd be selling.
Yeah, you're the third person to say it. Leon's being like,
I think you better take...
time to sell. I might have to give you a call, Tim.
I don't sell, mate.
No, for the mortgage to help me.
Hey,
with the
if your
mortgage.
broker's doing a good job, stick with your broker. If he's doing a good job and you have a look at his credit guide and he's not oversaturated at one bank, they're few and far between. And I wouldn't change. But if you look at it and they're sitting at 60% at one lender, maybe have a look around, shop around.
Absolutely. Well, Tim, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast.
It's been great being here.
It's gone by in a flash, and
Yeah.
having that insight both on as the financier and as the buyer's agent, well, having the insight of which you've brought forward is really special, and I really think that our buyers will take a lot from that. So thank you for joining us. Where can people find you? It's ipsbuyersagents.com.au.
On buyersagents.com.au.
On Buyers Agents. So you've been a real big supporter of buyersagents.com.au, and we really appreciate that.
I'm very grateful.
Your profile looks incredible. It's amassing a lot of views. The analytics are showing that, and it's cascading into the World Wide Web and the search engines, which you being early to market, being there and putting out that content regularly, I think is going to show a long way. So we really appreciate that support.
Well, I want to thank you guys for coming up with it.
And love your insights for that.
Yeah. If you're keen, I'd love to come back on, say, around about the 100th episode in a couple of years' time.
Well, definitely won't be in a couple of years' time. I think we're going to start actioning a little bit more faster as we expanded. But we would love to have you back on.
Absolutely. I just think your depth of knowledge on these suburbs, especially around Brisbane and this pocket.
See, I look at it this way: I can try and get licensed everywhere, and then help people all across the country, or I can specialise and become a master of my backyard. And past life, I was a sales rep, so I know the southeast corner. I worked in that sort of construction side of things. So I look at it and I go, well, that's where all that sort of uplift goes on. And I just love the southeast corner. There's no bad spot really around here.
We loved having you on.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
So thank you, Tim. For our buyers and buyers agents, thank you for joining us on this episode. If you want to find Tim, you can visit Tim at buyersagents.com.au/Tim Allen. You can see him on Instagram at Tim Allen Buyers Agent.
Yeah, IPS Buyers
IPA,
Agents.
or check the links below. If you have enjoyed this episode, we'd love to have you subscribe. So please hit the subscribe button, like this episode, and leave a comment. Tim has been in the comments answering over the past couple of episodes, and I'm sure a number of you will have questions and comments for Tim. So please make sure you do comment, like, subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thanks very much.